Welcome aboard the Mothership Lexodus. This is your current of consciousness report, where we read the frequencies beneath the headlines and decode how global patterns mirror our own energetic evolution. Today's transmission moves through the 10/7/2025 portal, a date vibrating on the frequency of 8, the infinity loop, and our themes include power, polarity, and the art of holding charge without weaponizing it. October 7th carries a significant resonance, a day marked in recent memory by global conflict, echoes of weaponization in media and politics, and a collective question around how power is used and who gets to define truth. Yet numerologically, this day also opens the 8-loop portal, a cycle that demands balance, integrity, and stewardship. The 8 is the figure of infinity, energy circulating through equal halves of spirit and matter. When it flows freely, we manifest with grace. When it clogs, polarity and projection take over. On a practical level, the headlines today still orbit the language of weaponization, words charged with fear, control, and defense. We also notice cultural spotlights returning to familiar archetypes of power and media: the producer, the performer, and the voice of the people. But underneath these storylines, there's an energetic equation unfolding. It's not just politics or pop culture, it's the collective psyche processing what power really means. After 2 years of continuous global tension, so let's decode the archetypal circuitry guiding this portal. We begin with what I call the Bond circuit, named after the overlapping energy signatures of James Bond, Bad Bunny, and Pam Bondi. These 3 archetypes represent the 3 modes of power: expression, action, creation, and law. Each carries a high expression and shadow expression, and together they reveal where the collective is currently out of sync. The Bond archetype embodies the masculine principle of directed will. It's the part of consciousness that acts with precision, that executes a mission with focus and finesse. Bond knows how to aim, but not always how to feel. In the collective psyche, this shows up as control consciousness. The belief that survival depends on mastery. That order comes from domination rather than collaboration. The shadow of Bond is the system that values strategy over soul. It's the bureaucracy, the secret agency, the cold perfection of power. Energetically, this corresponds to the solar plexus, the seat of will and personal identity. When balanced, it's leadership; when overcharged, it's domination. Where Bond is control, Bad Bunny is liberation. He is the mercurial current, fluid, experimental, rule-breaking. He shapeshifts through style, gender, language, and sound. He's an emissary of the new consciousness that refuses to be defined. But his power, like Mercury's, can also fragment. Too much information, too much expression, and the field becomes overstimulated. He channels the overexposure of the digital age, the madness of visibility, where everything is performance and authenticity becomes hard to find. In the energy body, this correlates to the throat and sacral centers, where creation and communication meet. In balance, it's innovation. In shadow, it's overstimulation, identity scattered into noise. And then we have Pam Bondi, whose very name Bondi, from roots meaning bound or connected, already carries the frequency of Saturn, the planet of structure, discipline, and accountability. Her archetype is the architect of law, the one who steps in when chaos needs boundaries and language needs procedure. In reality, Bondi currently serves on what's called the Weaponization of Government Working Group in the U.S. House of Representatives, a committee formed to investigate possible political misuse of federal power. That title alone, Weaponization, perfectly mirrors the 8-loop lesson of this portal: how easily the life force of law and order can tilt from regulation into weaponization when charge overtakes consciousness. Energetically, this archetype holds the root to crown circuit, the line that connects earthly governance with high order. When that current is balanced, structure protects life. When it's inverted, structure constrains it. The weaponization theme reminds the collective to ask, where have our protective systems become reactive systems? In healthy expression, the architect of law builds frameworks that let energy flow safely. In distortion, the same impulse crystallizes into rigidity and moral absolutism. So, Bondi's position in that committee becomes a living metaphor for the 8 portals' core teaching, how to hold power as stewardship instead of strategy, how to regulate energy without turning it into retribution. Together, Bond, Bunny, and Bondi form the full 8-loop imbalance: control, expression, law, each spinning in isolation rather than resonance. This is why the collective feels tension right now. It's the push-pull between freedom and authority, creativity and control, voice and system. The field is overloaded with charge, too much energy without proper circulation. So how do we bring it back into coherence? We look to the Integration Triad, 3 archetypes who demonstrate how to balance those exact forces. To find equilibrium, we turn to 3 Libra-born figures who naturally embody harmonizing energies and were also born on this portal date: Simon Cowell, Toni Braxton, and Joy Behar. They represent the refinement of power in their field, how the charged field finds rhythm again. Cowell channels the Saturn-Mercury frequency like Bondi, but in a more humanized or relatable way. He's the judge, but also the mentor. He knows how to evaluate talent, but his goal at its best is cultivation, not necessarily domination. He turns structure into feedback. In the 8 loop, he represents the corrected Bondi, law serving evolution, not suppression. His archetype reminds us boundaries are sacred when they support growth. Braxton carries the Venus frequency, heart, emotion, the beauty born from vulnerability. Her voice embodies the full spectrum of human feeling, pain, love, loss, and transcendence. She takes the charge that might otherwise destroy us and turns it into art. She is the harmonic repair to the Bad Bunny frequency. Where his chaos disperses, her sound gathers. Where his voice fractures, hers focuses. She teaches the collective that emotion isn't weakness, it's currency when refined through art. Behar represents the mercurial air of Libra in its balanced state, communication that exposes truth without destroying it. Her archetype is the jester, the one who brings levity and perspective. She helps the collective release pressure through laughter, dialogue, and debate. She integrates the Bond archetype, transforming the agent's tension into conversation. The sword becomes microphone, the mission becomes dialogue. In this harmonic loop, Cowell refines structure, Braxton heals emotion, Behar humanizes intellect. Together they close the loop that Bond, Bunny, and Bondi open. This is the alchemical completion of the 8 portal. When the 3 lower currents, control, expression, and law, learn from the 3 upper harmonics, discernment, art, dialogue, the system stabilizes. Power circulates again, not as domination, but as design. Take a deep breath and ask, which side of the loop am I living in today? Are you the over-controlling Bond, the overstimulated Bunny, the over-structured Bondi? Or are you stepping into your Simon, your Toni, your Joy? The refined states of power that transform chaos into coherence. The 8 frequency will echo for several days, integrating the lessons from the Tower Chariot sequence of October 6th. Expect continued themes around accountability, justice, and communication, both in the collective and within your own relationships. By October 10th, the next portal opens a rebirth cycle where the structures we're building now will manifest as visible outcomes. So this week, think of yourself as an architect of coherence. You're not just managing information, you're designing how it moves. The 8 loop is the law of return. Power matures when it stops reacting, and start circulating through balance. Thank you for tuning into the Mothership Lexodus Current of Consciousness Report. If this broadcast resonated, subscribe for future transmissions and join the Discord community, where we read the collective currents in real time and practice decoding the consciousness grid together. And remember, keep your signal clear and your awareness tuned to the currents beneath the noise.